Hello and welcome to Dad Surviving Divorce. I'm Dwayne. Today I want to talk a little bit about how the relationship with your kids breaks down and some tips that you can use to try to help rebuild that. When you're going through the beginning stages of this and you're struggling, oftentimes what happens is your ex is able to play your weaknesses against you with your kids, which degrades your relationship with your children. What happens with that is they can point out faults within your general baseline operating procedure, so to speak, where you are doing things that the other parent is highlighting with the child. So for instance, if you are constantly, let's say you're constantly on the computer and you're ignoring the kids, and the other parent can highlight that, keep that in the mind of the child, so that way whenever you do it, in their mind, it's validating what the other parent is saying, and then when they're adding extra stuff into that, then they validate that as well. So it's tough because these people can watch or have watched everything that you do for years. They know your character, they know the way you normally react. They also know the trigger points for your kids as well, and they will absolutely use that against you. There was a comment in the live stream the other day where an individual had said that they had had a great conversation with their daughter. Everything was fine, and the following day he was persona non grata. She hated him now, didn't want him involved in any part of her life, in an instant. Now his concern was that maybe she's a narcissist, and there is a possibility that that's the case, but a stronger possibility. And he had mentioned, as I asked further questions, he'd mentioned that his daughter has constant contact with her mom and a constant interaction. So a more plausible scenario is that he had that good conversation. Him and his daughter had that good conversation, and then it was intercepted by the other parent. And the other parent was able to highlight past triggers to remind the child, even at this age, in this particular example, the child was 21 years old, but that still the other parent can highlight those problems or those issues to cause things to degrade. First thing is, if that happens to you, if you find yourself in that position, try to calm down a little bit and put it into context. And what I mean by that is, don't just assume the worst case scenario, right? Like in this particular person's scenario, and to be perfectly honest, I would have assumed the same thing early stages in this. So I mean, it's not something that anybody is at a lesser level, or however you want to say it, not as whatever. It's everyone's responses to this is going to be the same, because it's highly emotional. You have your own children being turned against you, and that you have another parent who's actively encouraging that. The crazy part about this is, typically in a marriage, normally both people are trying to build things up, but whenever you have a toxic divorce with somebody, they want to destroy it. So you do not have an advocate trying to make excuses for you, and normally they'll say, well, I'm not going to make excuses for you any longer, and that type of stuff. But you have somebody systematically trying to take every little incident that they possibly can to destroy your relationship with your child. Okay, so how do you deal with this? The first thing, like I mentioned a second ago, is keep it in context. Don't just assume the worst, that your child is inherited all the traits of the narcissistic parent, that they are a narcissist themselves, they're beyond hope, you can't get to them, and it's a lost cause. Now, as you work through this, that potentially could be the case, but that shouldn't be your starting point. Your starting point should be, okay, I had a good interaction with my child. It went well. After my child had an opportunity to have an interaction with the other parent, that experience is no longer a good experience. Now it's a horrible experience, and things have changed. That is a really good indicator that something is significantly wrong. I mean, unless your kid is borderline or has some serious emotional disorder, which is highly unlikely, possible but unlikely, it's probably that they've been manipulated and triggered by another person. So the thing is you have to be sure that you control your reaction to this and you still remain available. If they're pushing you away and saying don't come near me and stuff like that, then that creates some problems. But so you have to respect that in some regard, but you still have to be available so that whenever they finally reach back out to you, whenever it starts clicking in their mind that something isn't quite right and that they really do want to have a relationship with their other parent, that they reach out to you. The critical part about this is that you have to be open. When they come to you to talk to you, you have to be able to listen to them, and you have to be able to have that interaction, a positive interaction with them, to where you're not fighting about it, which is really tough because you're going to want to fix it. You're going to want to say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. You don't just get to treat me this way. You know, you're disrespecting my boundaries, and in a lot of ways that is true. But you have to look at the long-term goal of what you're trying to accomplish. You are trying to rebuild the relationship with your child to make sure that you can have a relationship with them. Sorry about that, had to pause for an airplane to take off. Bottom line is you're trying to rebuild the relationship with your kids. So you're gonna have to be available and make yourself available to where they can interact with you. Now, you may have to wait for a while for that to happen, but I think that when that happens, if you're able to keep the door open and have a conversation. Now, at some point, once you start building that relationship back up, you can have some conversations about this, but at the beginning stages, you really can't. So just bottom line is keep in mind, or the bigger picture of what's going on, and before you jump to the conclusion that they actually really do hate you. On that, I'm gonna wrap this up before more planes start taking off, and I will chat with you guys in the next video. Take care, bye.